corruption. Big topic, innit? State level corruption, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. It's not a one we're going to dwell into today. It's a bit too contentious, but the data's nice. Alright, lads and lasses, welcome along. Weekend work. Number 12. So, the Corruption Perceptions Index is about really how corrupt a country is in terms of state-level corruption, and also, to a certain extent, about businesses. The two are hand in hand. A good state generally will keep an eye on companies and make sure that they're performing well and they're all aligned together. What you find, though, is if you're in a low corruption country and you have dealings in a high corruption country, those can fall under higher scrutiny levels. So for your audit process, it might be worth looking and thinking, what can we do to link these together? So I thought, let's have a look. Let's pull this into Power BI, into part of a country dimension, one of our base dimensions that we might keep using in data flows, right? But I thought I'll pull this into Power BI desktop. And if you remember, I'll put the video in how we brought it through into a data flow as well. Let's cut an hour into Power BI desktop. Champion. All right, so here we are, Power BI desktop. Not too difficult. Remember, we want to pull in a new data source. So what we're going to need to do is to import some data. So let's scan and get data on the top. So we're going to get data, and in this point, we're going to pick more. And I'm going to be doing this from my SharePoint Online, because SharePoint Online, that's the best place for me to be putting files these days, right? Link to Teams. So, of course, my corruption team could be checking on it, having an eye on it, looking at what's going on. They're aware, right? But for now, we're just going to pick SharePoint folder, and I'm going to click Connect. I'm going to paste in the URL to my SharePoint folder. Click OK. Power BI is going to scan away, form that connection back to my SharePoint folder. Now I've got this. It gives us the full list. Remember, we're always going to click Transform Data. So we'll click Transform Data now. See, that's opened up this content of everything that's in there. All the files that are in my SharePoint folder. See, it's one of my development areas. I've got lots in there. So we'll start by filtering it. Easiest way, put them in different folders if you've got lots of different data. If you want to have a data core area, brilliant. Put different folders in. You can have different data flows, different processing happening to different things. With this, we might want to get in the habit of putting the file in every year when it comes out and not having to rebuild it. So how can we do that? The easiest way is to have a secondary filter on here. Now I could just pick this, but that's going to filter it by that file name. And as you can see, it's got the year in it, CPI 2020. But if I put a text filter and it contains, so it's global tables, isn't it? So where it contains global tables, we've got one, right? Just to make sure everything was then consistent, if we had lots and lots of years in here, we could change this to be descending, and then we could choose to keep the top rows. So we're going to keep just the top one row. So we've sorted it by descending from date modified, which should just give us one, or the top in reverse order. And then we just want to keep the top row. So we've just got one row. Right. Then, to keep this scanning, what you really need to do is to actually hit combine files. Just going into the binary, you can get into troubles with it. So combine files tends to be the way that avoids it calling a specific file name or embedding a file name anywhere in the code, in your M script. Right? So for all it might seem like, oh, it's going to create a function, so it's going to do that. It is a bit of extra work for the engine. It makes it more future-proof. Right here, we can see we actually need to do this twice, right? If we're going to pull the whole thing through. But I'll do one here, right? And then I'll fly through and do the other one. So I'm going to pull this one in, CPI time series 2012 to 2020. And you can see it's found some different versions, which potentially are going to save you from having to filter it based on different things. The filter one is probably straight away gives you a much cleaner look, right? But we'll go the long way, just to show you kind of what you can do. So we've now opened up a nice big table with everything in it. What do we need to do now? Easy. Right, at this point, let's get rid of the source name. So I'm going to remove that. Right, you can see we've got 2 rows of rubbish in there. Now, if you remember, we've already used keep rows. We can remove rows from the top. So let's remove 2 rows from the top. And you're going to say, why 2? There's 3 rows that aren't right. Because this one, row 1 now, is what we want to have as the header. Let's use the first row as header. And now, all of a sudden, that makes much more sense. Right? That's a format that we can read. So if we select the first 3 columns and right-click on them, we can then unpivot the other columns. And again, this is great for future-proofing because you haven't got anything in there that's talking about values that are going to change. You know, your country name, your ISO 3, your region probably aren't going to change. The attribute, what we want to do now is split this. So if we go to transform, split the column by delimiter, not by delimiter, split the column by number of characters, right? Let's go once, as far right as possible. Let's pick 4, right? Because we just want to get the date out, don't we? Click that. So we can see it's picked, this is the year, this is the classification. Classification, year, and score. Okay, so we've got CPI. So if we were to close and apply that, you'd be able to see. So I'll tell you what, let's do that. Home, close and apply. All right, so here we go. We've got our values in. If we have a look at the table that we've got, what it would mean is we'd be able to turn around and say, I want to see CPI scores by year, by country, would be kind of where you would go, right? And you'd then be able to do your calculations, your measures, your performance, all based on that. So we'd bring in a year table, we'd use the years as the columns, all sorts of things like that. And it will work really well for you. What about that other sheet? I hear you saying, how would we do that other sheet? Tell you what, let's quickly do it fast forward ways, yeah? Champion. All right, so we've built like a base of the current year's scores, yeah? The current year CPI scores. What we've got on the far side, though, we can see, is we've got different scoring organizations, like scores, transformation index, and all these. It'd be useful to be able to keep them, but for efficiency, we need to unpivot around those. So I thought the nicest thing to do is going to be to break this into 2 tables, have the first few columns in one, and then use this ISO 3 column as a join to pull and unpivot the other ones, yeah? Right, gonna do that now, eh? Champion. So there we go. We've built that. We've been able to quickly and easily import that spreadsheet that we downloaded from transparency.org into our data table. This would then allow me to run calculations either based on the ISO 3 code, which is useful for countries because ISO 3 is just a standard term, isn't it? To then start to work out, are we doing business in good areas, bad areas? Do I need to do more due diligence within it or not? Have a great weekend after watching the other video, of course. Ta-da.